And yes, this is the time for technical session number 2. And let me take the privilege to call upon the screen the chairperson of the technical session number 2 and technical session number 3. Yes, I'm talking about Professor Anita Belavaria, ma'am. Uh, Ma'am, it gives me an immense pleasure to say some words about you as a personality, because everybody knows that Anita Bilavaria, ma'am, is just is such a eminent personality of the Jammu Kashmir and especially the Dogar land. So for her, I would like to say that Professor Anita Bilavaria, ma'am, Professor Anita Bilavaria, ma'am, Professor of History at Jammu University, Professor of History at Jammu University, Dean of Faculty of Social Sciences, and the Director of Center for History and Culture of Jammu and Ladakh regions, and Rinchen Sangpo Art Gallery, University of Jammu. She specializes in medieval history, especially art and culture, history of Jammu. Recently, she has been nominated as member of Sri Amarnath Ji Shrine Board. She has authored 10 books and edited 36 books. Her eminent books are Jammu Wall Paintings, Religious Art in Jammu Hills. She co-authored with Professor S.T.S. Charak, Sir, which includes History and Culture of Himalayan States, Volume 3, Volume 8, Pahari Styles of Indian Murals and Kargil Combat. In collaboration with Professor Charak, she also translated some Persian texts titles as Raj Darshani and Gulab Nama into English, and also some Dogri historical texts into English. She has over 120 research papers on art, culture, and history to her credit, which were presented in international, national, and regional seminars and conferences all over the world. She has also published the articles in national and international journals. She has authored for her contribution in the field of promotion of Dogri language, culture, and heritage. She is bestowed with many national awards and honors. She received the National Integration Award of Best Educationist in Northern India in 1995-96. She is a recipient of Indian Council of Historical Research Scholarship during her PhD in 1987. She was nominated as member of Financial Advisory Committee of Ministry of Culture, Government of India. She also served as an Indian National Trust for Art, Culture and Language and Heritage, INTAC, and co-convener from 2008 to 2016. She documented built heritage and wall painting in Jammu region, which were published by INTAC and Department of Tourism, J&K government as glimpse of built heritage. She has been nominated as Director Rinchen Zangpo Art Gallery in 2003 to make the Jammu University a...
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ravinder, for this wonderful introduction. And it was good to hear Dr. Kavita Suri, who is a very dear friend of mine and colleague also, and an eminent personality of the Jammu. I can also see Shubhra Jamwal, Dr. Shubhra Jamwal, Abhimanyu, Ravinder, no doubt Ravinder also. And before I proceed with the session, I would like to congratulate the organizers for giving us the platform to share knowledge and enrich our academic experience in the time of pandemic. 4 papers are going to be presented in this session, and the names of the presenters are Dr. Manpreet, Ms. Seema, Susmita Behra, and Shuli Mehti. I hope all are here. All participants are requested to not to. The second speaker is Seema. Miss Seema, is she present?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Seema, I request you to present your paper
Thank you, ma'am.
and be careful about the time also.
Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Seema Bhardwaj, a research scholar, Department of Education, Himachal Pradesh, University, Shimla. My paper for the presentation that is titled with Yogic Practices and Emotional Intelligence as the True Medicine to Maintain the Intellectual Powers of the Secondary School Pre-Service Teachers. So let's start with the introduction of the title. In the present pandemic situation, human being is facing many problems related to their economic status, ethical values, day-to-day life, physical problems, and professional issues because this pandemic has crushed the whole world and it is affecting the lifestyle, goals, relationship, attitude of the people as well as professionals like doctors, engineers, teachers, etc. It is decreasing the emotional and spiritual values among people. So, in this crucial stage, yoga has come as a true medicine to maintain the intellectual powers of the professionals. Yogic practices are true medicine to attain the highest level of consciousness and to balance the emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence consists empathy, self-control, successful relationship, and self-motivation. But due to rapid change in the world, these values are decreasing. Emotional intelligence is an ability to monitor one's own and others' feelings and emotions. Studies reveal that emotional intelligence is the key to success. It is necessary for teachers to balance their emotions so that they could maintain their intellectual powers. It is possible through the yogic practices that are helpful to maintain the emotions. So here is the meaning of yoga. Yoga is considered as the controlling of the mind. It is also considered as the foundation of Indian philosophy and ancient technique that involves the physical exercises, relaxation of the body and mind through meditation. It is a technique to balance our internal and external environment. It also affects the aspects of our mind, that is intellect, ego, reason and subconsciousness. According to Patanjali, 8 spiritual practices are mentioned that are yam, niyam, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi that help in the internal purification as well as external purifications. So these elements of yoga are limbs of yoga I have discussed. So here the classification of asana. Classification of asanas is meditative asana, relaxative asana, and correlative asana. Ma'am, I have just included 3 types and 3 technique according to the Patanjali Ashtanga Yoga, asana, pranayama, and meditation. So, if we talk about the asana, meditation power of an individual is enhanced. Relaxative asana removes fatigue and relax an individual mentally and physically. And the corrective asanas, that we can say the cultural asanas, regulate and systematize the different activities of the body and finally provides the energy to the body. Here are some techniques of asanas. Padamasana, Swastikasana, Bhujangasana, and Shavasana. Each asana is benefiting to the individual, that is the disorder of disease, change in the metabolic structure and brain pattern, balance in the whole system of the body. Swastika is very helpful to induces the fertility, creativity and auspiciousness. And Bhujang Asana is beneficial to improve and deepens the breathing system, removes backache. And Shavasana, very useful for awareness of body and mind, revitalize the entire system of the body, useful in yogic management of high blood pressure, anxiety, cancer, hysteria, and neurosis, relaxes. Here, pranayama, second one is pranayama. Prana means that control of breath and deals with the regulation of inhalation, retention, and exhalation of the breath. Prana is a system of breathing regulation which consists in the stopping of the process of inhalation. Here are the parts of pranayama, that is Purak, Rechak, and Kumbhak. Puraka, that is called the inhalation, Rechaka is exhalation, and Kumbhaka is the retention of the breath. So what is the inhalation? Inhalation means you are taking your breath in, and exhalation, you are getting out your breath. Inhalation and exhalation. In between, there is one point, that is the retaining the breath. That is to retain the breath after complete inhalation. That is called Kumbhaka. And to retain the breath after complete the exhalation, that is also the part of Kumbhaka. So it is related to the internal Kumbhaka and the external Kumbhaka. Some techniques of pranayama are here: Nadi Shodhan, Bhasrika, Bhramri, and Murcha. Nadi Shodhan, that is benefited for, induces the tranquility and increases concentration power, lowers the level of stress and anxiety. And what is Bhasrika? Benefited for, clears the pranic blockages, beneficial for spiritual awakening, activates the brain and strengthens the nervous system. And Bhramri, that is common in youngsters, old ages, in today's life, reduces the cerebral tension, improves the voice quality. Humming sound creates a soothing effect on the mind and nervous system. And Musha, it is type blocking your breath, clears the mind of unnecessary thoughts, excellent preparation for the meditation, and enhances dharana. Now, talking about the meaning of meditation. What is meditation? Meditation is a process of complete concentration of mind. According to Patanjali, the concentration of chit on a vritti without any divergence is called dhyana. Dhyana is not a practice, but it is a stage of mind in which here is continuous, dynamic, conscious without any obstruction. So here are some techniques for the meditation I have mentioned. First is mindful meditation, that is beneficial for, it treats 4 areas of mind, that is anxiety, domestication, depression, and social dysfunctions. Second one is transcendental meditation, that is very effective for the treatment for cardiovascular disease, effect on right orbitofrontal cortex, right thalamus, left temporal gyrus inside the brain, improves mental well-being and sleep pattern. Mantra meditation, that is the sound can help and sound can heal. Activates the frontal gyrus, prefrontal cortex, middle cortex, prefrontal cortex, used in depression and epilepsy. Vipassana meditation, very beneficial for, reduces the anxiety, increase productivity, facilitates the clarity of thoughts, concentration, better decision making, etc. Now, emotional intelligence is an ability to motivate oneself and persist in the face of frustration, to control impulse, to regulate one's mood, and read and deal effectively with other people's feelings. So it includes the self-regulation, self-awareness, social awareness, self-motivation, empathy, etc. So we need to see the relationship between the yogic practices and emotional intelligence. Yogic practices and emotional intelligence is integrated as a whole. Emotional intelligence is equilibrium point between cognitive or intellect and emotion. Both can be achieved by the proper flows of energy. When you are in a relaxed position, You can concentrate easily. This position will make you calm, relaxed, and tension free. Whereas yoga practices serve a relaxed body, stretch muscles, eradicate the stress and anxiety and breathing process, and integrate your mind, body, and spirit. So we can say that yoga and emotional intelligence are the two sides of same coin. Both are important for mental power, physical strength, and successful life. Here are some reviewed studies I have mentioned, that is the Shah and Makhwa, who found the result enhancement in the emotional intelligence level of students through practicing Raj Yoga meditation. Tikhe and Nagendra Bulut, Desh Shutulu, role of mantras in mental health and the contribution of yoga to the development of emotional intelligence. So some recommendations are here. Yoga should be included in the curriculum as compulsory subject at school, college, and university level. There should be a professional yoga instructor to practice the yoga activities. Fixed timetable must be followed in the school levels. There should be a professional counselor at school level to check and guide for balancing the emotions. Teachers should be reinforced for their work, and special incentives must be provided by the government. Teachers should not be overloaded by the extra work, because it will be an obstacle for the teachers to complete their teaching work with peaceful manner. So conclusion, we can say at the end, as mentioned earlier, in the different studies, yogic practices and emotional intelligence are working as a true medicine to maintain the mental power of the adolescents, students, teachers, and people concerned with the different field. Studies showed that yoga is not just a physical practice, but also the way of life. In pandemic situation and the challenging time, people are becoming pessimist, feeling stressed, lonely, impatient, selfish. All these are affecting the lifestyle of people and weakening their strength, especially secondary pre-service teachers, because they are burdened with syllabus, facing an economic crisis, extra workload in the school. This makes the teachers stressful, anxious, and impatient. Teaching through phones, laptop, online delivery of lectures, sometimes all these have the negative impact on the personality of the teachers. If we want to make healthy, creative, and productive environment in the school, college, or university level, we need to introduce yogic practices in curriculum and need to practice emotional aspects to improve our intelligence to understand and manage the emotions. Here are some references. Thank you so much. I am very grateful to the entire organizing team for giving such opportunity to present my paper in this international conference. So, and also my heartfelt thanks to the audience to listen me very attentively and carefully. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Seema. Your paper was very interesting, at least for me, because I do yoga daily. So I practice yoga daily. So
Yes,
this
I also do everyday yoga, ma'am.
I
That's why
think
I choose this.
all should do this practice. So your presentation, no doubt, was the need of the time, at least for the students and the teachers. And you also covered all the significant. Covered the significance and the philosophical aspects of the yoga, and it was really a very good paper. I congratulate.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now
Thank you
the
so much
house
for
is
your appraisal.
now the house is open for discussion. If someone has any question, any query, any comment, or
Yeah,
any suggestion.
with the permission of the chairperson, my name is Abhimanyu Dev Singh Biloria, and I not a question, but a compliment or a comment, you can say like that. First of all, Seema Bharatwaj, it was a wonderful paper, and you have taken this aspect at this international level. So, as an Indian, as a, practitioner of yoga, I think I am really grateful to you that you brought up this concept. And as Anita ma'am has also said that yoga is need of the hour in academia also. I do practice yoga, and I had been to Patanjali Yogram also. And doing yoga, I lost 20 kgs of weight. So which is really very important, and it helps you to streamline. However, I have one question regarding yoga. I hope if you could answer. Seema, I want to ask you that how to handle procrastination through yoga.
Sorry, sir. Will you repeat, please?
How to handle procrastination? Procrastination means the habit of delaying things.
Habit of?
Delaying things. You know, अच्छा अभी करता हूँ शाम को करूँगा कल करूँगा परसों करूँगा and the opportunity is gone.
Sir, I would like to say about this. We are just getting the excuses always, as I have no time to do something. This will waste my time. The 5 minute for 1 minute and a half an hour. But determination is very important. If we are determined for our activities and for our tasks, so we can do it every day.
So,
Okay.
Seema, I think this is escapism.
Okay, thank you, Seema.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Now, I should invite the next speaker. Now, may I invite Saspita Behra to present her paper.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Ma'am, actually, I have a problem that due to some personal issues, I am unable to prepare my slide, ma'am. But I have a Word file, and from that, can I present?
Yeah, okay. You proceed, please. Susmita, are you listening? Okay.
Sasmita, please unmute yourself and you can start your presentation. Sasmita, unmute yourself.
I think she has some technical problem.
Yes, ma'am, I think she has some technical problem. So we can just wait for a minute and then we can proceed.
No problem.
Yeah, I think she'll join us back because she's left the meeting. Must be some technical issues. As all of us are very much aware of the circumstances and the net connectivity.
There are two in all over India.
Yes, ma'am. We usually think it's in Jammu, but I think it's all over India.
Yeah. Susmita is from which place?
She's from Odisha.
Okay.
She's from Odisha.
Orissa.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes. Rasmita.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Rasmita, please start.
Ma'am, actually, network connection is very poor where I am staying, ma'am, and that's why it's repeatedly cutting.
Sasmita, you can do the oral presentation also.
Sir, can I present
Yeah.
slide? Okay. May I continue?
Please continue.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, a very good afternoon to all of you. I am Tasmita Behera, research scholar from Central University of Odisha, Koraput. And today I am very glad because I am going to present my paper based on social media usage, a mediator for collaborative learning and psychological well-being of higher education students during lockdown. And as I am presenting in an international conference, that's why I am feeling very much glad. So come to my topic that as we know, in the 21st century, time has changed and social media is now regarded as the most significant activity for gaining new experience. It's because of the steady growth in internet users around the world, which has put the rest of internet use and for running social media from millions to billions. It's a strong networking tool that has widespread impact in both rural and urban areas. However, we are just experiencing, uh, however, adoption of the digital revolution not only has digital transformation impacted industries and made the internet more available, but it has also altered how we interact. The use of web-based and mobile technology to transform contact into an open conversation is referred to as social media. As a term, social media refers to the various internet-based networks that enable users to interact with others both verbally and visually. And however, social media is like there is we can use now digital platforms, so we can use social media in the sense like WhatsApp, Facebook, wikis, Twitter, TikTok, which is now Vine, etc. So, social media is nothing but as a medium for social interaction, we can say, and the use of social media has a number of advantages and disadvantages also. And the online sharing of knowledge and information among various groups of people is one of the most important advantage of social media. The online information sharing also encourages people to improve their communication skill, especially among the learner or students in educational institutions. Students' use of social media can improve communication and socialization as well as learning opportunities and access to important health information. It also allows students to communicate with their classmates and exchange knowledge. The use of social media platform has a negative side as well. It also encourages the spread of false or misleading information, leading to unwarranted teenage psychological activities like sexting, cyberbullying, anxiety, social isolation, and suicide. People may often abuse such tool, like resulting in intrusion into one's privacy, bearing in mind the ethical aspect of the use of yeah, such situation can quickly escalate. As a result, social media tools have virtually impressed people who are close with those who live in the far location. However, what is the importance of social media usage during lockdown period? So this is very well known for all of us that COVID-19 is the first pandemic of digital age. And with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, social media has rapidly become a crucial communication tool for information generation, dissemination, and consumption. Since March 2020, the world has been locked indoors due to ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Amidst this COVID-19 lockdown, many of the people have switched to the increasing use of social media, website, and other apps to pass on their spare time. It is no longer a hidden fact that the usage of social media websites such as Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and WhatsApp have unnecessarily searched high than routine. Physical activities such as running, walking, jogging, etc. have now been replaced by social media activities such as virtual fitness classes, continuous newsfeed browsing, and video chats. Yet, in such time, social media has benefited individuals with lots of advantages. Firstly, it has allowed people to stay in touch with each other and share information about physical and emotional well-being. It has enabled us to spare time and reconnect with our lost contacts right from the comfort of our homes. The fact that such platforms facilitate video chats has added on to an increased experience of being close with our families staying miles and miles apart. However, several research are there which have studied, and most of the researchers have found out that the changes in the social connecting patterns have adversely affected people's lifestyle and in turn their mental health. Most of the individuals have a tendency to be socially active and interact with their fellows to avoid internal conflicts. Researchers highlight the rising number of mental challenges people face in the wake of the crisis and social distancing measures. Some studies reveal that the responsible use of these tools can help during a pandemic to quickly spread new important information, sharing new ideas, pictures, videos, etc. It has also become an effective tool in presenting the public with factual materials, timely updates, and relevant advice. On the other side, social media has a significant impact on spreading fear and panic related to the COVID-19 outbreak, with a potential negative influence on people's mental health and psychological well-being. It also leads to dissemination of fact data, myths, and pessimist information that combined with quarantine states may result in anxiety, depression, and in some extreme cases, that is the suicide. And now social media usage and collaborative learning. So we all know that what collaborative learning is. Collaborative learning is the educational approach of using groups to enhance learning through working together, or we can say that collaborative learning is a situation where two or more people or two or more, particularly student or teacher, whatever else they can learn or attempt to learn something together, that we call collaborative learning. So groups of two or more learners work together to solve problems, complete tasks, or learn new concept, that we call collaborative learning. However, in the present scenarios, the use of social media usage for collaborative learning enhances students' engagement, which represents both physical and mental involvement of them. Time spent boosts to the enhancement of educational excellency, and time spent on interaction with peers and teachers, sharing of ideas, etc., which ultimately affects the student academic performance. Now, social media usage and psychological well-being. And what is the relationship behind social media usage and psychological well-being? So psychological well-being is defined at one's level of psychological happiness or health, encompassing feelings of accomplishment. So, however, many researchers have revealed that social media is continually growing, especially among teenagers, causing high level of stress, low academic achievement, creating a feeling of loneliness, causing some psychosocial problems like adjustment, self-esteem, depression, inattentiveness in class, hyperactivity or impulsivity, anxiety, etc., due to the excessive use of social media. And most of the researchers are there. They have reviewed it, like Ahan in the year 2011, Stringland, Mensa and Nizam, etc. So some of the investigators have also examined that social media usage have both positive as well as negative effects on mental health and academic performance of the students, as it enhances social media socialization, good communication, learning opportunities, and access to health information in a positive way, while on the other hand it creates some psychosocial problems because of using it for long hours. It makes them addicted and results in poor academic performance. However, many researchers have also studied mainly rural students and concluded that most of the students are using it for entertainment and communication than educational purposes. So, After reviewing such literature relating to collaborative learning and psychological well-being, which are happening before lockdown and during lockdown, relating to social media usage, my conclusion is most of the studies I found that most of the studies have also done relating to negative effects, and most of the studies have revealed only I'm not saying that only, but most of the studies only shown the negative sides that relating to social media usage. But there is the less study that I have found relating to positive side. So my suggestion is that yes, we know that social media usage, due to the excessive use, due to the negative usage, we are suffering, and the new generation, we can say that the teenagers, the students mostly are suffering, are facing a lot of issues, a lot of problems, and ultimately they are hampering in their educational field. But social media usage, social media is really an effective platform during lockdown, mostly I can say. And rather than negative sides, mostly we need to focus on the positive sides, how it is helping to learn together with our peer group, with our teachers. And now we are communicating in the international, through the mode of international conference, it is also by the help of social media communication. So this side mostly we should focus rather than negative side, because most of the studies have only focused on psychological stress, distress, frustration, anxiety, etc. So I conclude that rather than in negative effect, negative side, we most focus on positive side, how social media is helping the students, the teachers, how they are collaboratively learning together, how social media is increasing or balancing their psychological their psychological well-being or mindset, that ultimately growing their performance in the educational field. Thank you. Thank you for cooperating the team and giving me a valuable time to present my paper. Thank you so much.
Anita ma'am, please unmute.
Ma'am, your mic is muted, I guess. Please unmute yourself.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes.
Thank you, Sasmita Vera. You
Thank you, ma'am.
presented very nicely and very confidently. And you have wonderfully explained the challenges. And you spoke of the media uses for the students and the students during this lockdown period. It was a wonderful attempt. I congratulate you.
Thank you
And
so much, ma'am.
now the house is open for discussion. Anybody wants to give her suggestion or new ideas? Okay. Now I proceed to the next speaker. May I invite Shuli Mehte to present her paper here. Yes, she is present.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Shuli Mehti, a PhD scholar in Education Department, the English and Foreign Language University, Hyderabad, Telangana. So the paper I am going to present is a part of my PhD work. My area is musical sensitivity in children with respect to cognitive and linguistic abilities. But here in this paper, I have presented a few bit of my whole research area. So here I have correlated intelligence with music perception abilities in children. So now I am going to share the slides. So the title of my paper is Does intelligence affect music perception ability in children? So I will be restricted in these points only because due to short time. So the first I will deal with the abstract and keywords, then briefly introduction, then directly I will jump to objectives, then statement, research questions, then hypothesis, sample and sampling techniques, then research design, data collection tool, data analysis and measure findings, limitations and implications with conclusion. So intelligence is required to do any work effectively. And moreover, not only children, intelligence is required for everyone to do perform in every day-to-day work also. So in this study, to measure intelligence and the music perception abilities of children, I have taken 36 children of class 7 standard from Howrah district of West Bengal. And out of 36 children, 18 were girls and 18 were boys. And then the mean age of them were near about 13 years. And children's intelligence skill was examined and administering by test of G culture fair test scale 2 form A developed by RB Cattle and AKS Cattle. And the music perception was administered by PROMS test, means short PROMS test. It was developed by University of Innsbruck. And there in this study, I have found that there is positive correlation between intelligence and music perception ability in children. So the basic keywords is intelligence, music perception ability, gender differences, PROMS, and test of G culture fair scale to form A. So here it is brief introduction about intelligence. Intelligence is nothing but a cognitive abilities like other abilities like creativity, working memory, creative imagination, spatial ability, and so many are there. So like other cognitive abilities, also intelligence is much more explored in different areas. Psycholinguistics also are dealing with intelligence. Social linguistics are also dealing with intelligence. Education people are also dealing with the intelligence. Psychologists are also dealing with it. But for me, it is basically the Gardner multiple intelligence theory, where music was also a component as intelligence. Based upon that theory only, I thought of going for this work. And in this case, with intelligence and music perceptions, many studies are available. So I have read all these studies, and then I come to there where I found some gap, and that leads to me frame the objectives for this study. So I have two objectives to explore. The first one is to explore the relationship between intelligence and music perception ability in children. And second one is to observe how boys and girls differ with respect to intelligence and music perception ability. So the statement of the problem is basically exploring the correlation between intelligence and music perception ability in children. So the research questions here, two research questions based upon the two objectives. First one is there any relationship exists between intelligence and music perception ability in children? And second research questions is, does gender difference exist with respect to intelligence and music perception ability in children? So in order to answer those two research questions, I have framed three hypotheses. Hypothesis number one is, there exists a statistically significant correlation between intelligence and music perception ability in children. Hypothesis 2 is, the boys and girls differ significantly in the mean scores achieved in the intelligence test. And hypothesis 3 is, there is a statistically significant difference in the mean score of boys and girls with respect to music perception ability. To select 36 students of 7th grade, I went for purposive sampling because I wanted the students of 36 numbers who were never exposed to any sorts of formal music classes. So that intelligence will be the only variable for me. I can assess that, yes, as they didn't have any sorts of musical exposure, because of intelligence, their music perception abilities varies. And my research design is correlation in nature. And here only two variables I have taken care of. One is intelligence and other one is music perception ability. So for me, intelligence is independent variable and music perception ability is dependent variable. For data collection, I have I administered test of the culture fair scale 2 form A developed by RB Cattle and AKS Cattle for intelligence. And this test has 46 items in total. and it has 4 sub-tests, means test 1, test 2, test 3, and test 4. So this is the thing for intelligence test. And music perception ability was assessed by administering short PROMS test, which has 70 items in total, and the test has 8 components: melody, rhythm to melody, tuning, accent, timbre, speed, and pitch. So this is the descriptive statistics for my variable. So it was consisted of total 36 members, means 18 boys, 18 girls, and the means maximum score, minimum score is given, and mean and standard deviation is also given in the slides. So to answer the first objective, that was the correlation between intelligence and music perception ability in children. So as I already framed that hypothesis, now to test the hypothesis, I transferred it to a null form, so that there is no statistically significant correlation exists between intelligence and music perception ability in children. Pearson product movement correlation was done by me to examine the correlation between intelligence and music perception ability in children. So this is table number 2, where it is reflecting the correlation score. So from correlation coefficient is equal to 0.873 and the p-value is 0.000, which is less than 0.01. Thus the null hypothesis is rejected. So it is observed that there exists a significantly high positive correlation between intelligence and music perception ability in children. Now come to the objective number 2, gender differences in intelligence. So already I framed the hypothesis that was that there boys and girls differ significantly in the mean score achieved in the intelligence test. So now to test it, I have converted into a null form. That is, the boys and girls do not differ significantly in the mean scores achieved in the intelligence test. An independent t-test was computed to observe whether gender has any influence or not in children's intelligence. So table number 3 shows the t-test of intelligence among boys and girls. So from here it is very evident that p-value is 0.5529, which is greater than the chosen level of significance, that is 0.05. So it is evident from this result that there was no gender role play in intelligence, means almost boys and girls had equivalent intelligence field. Objective 2.2, gender difference in music perception ability. So the hypothesis was there is a statistically significant difference in the mean score of boys and girls with respect to music perception ability. So in the null form of the hypothesis was there was no statistically significant difference in the mean score of boys and girls with respect to music perception ability. As usual, an independent test was computed to check the score. So the table number 4 shows the gender difference in music perception ability in children. And here the t-value is 0.9488 and the p-value is equal to 0.3494. By the conventional criteria, this difference is considered to be not statistically significant. The null hypothesis is accepted at 5% significance level. Therefore, I can say that there was no gender role play in music perception ability in children. So the main 3 findings from here, that for first objective it was that yes, there is a significant correlation between intelligence and music perception ability in children. And for objective 2, there was no kind of gender didn't affect at all both the intelligence and music perception ability in children. Now come to the limitations. Sample size was very limited. It was restricted to 36, and the study was limited to class 7th grade student. And the study didn't take into consideration about the musician students who may undergo some formal musical training. And the study was limited to quantitative data. No qualitative data were analyzed to get the findings. And the study is confined to intelligence only to access music perception. There exist other cognitive abilities which may affect music perception ability. And this is a cross-sectional study, does not help to determine cause-effect relationship also. And implications, as the new education policy has touted for music and other extracurricular things to be taken care of at school very seriously. For the first time it came into a very comprehensive manner. So I can say that maybe teachers, policymakers, they may now think about it. Yes, music is also important, not only for relaxation purpose, but also for something aesthetic value. And teachers, policymakers need to be aware that cognitive limitations of learner will tend to inhibit their music perception ability also. The more you expose, the better you perceive. There should be sufficient scope to learn music for all the children in school. And this study may help policymakers as well as teachers to rethink on the strategies on how to implement it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Shuli Mehte. You presented your paper with the help of the data collection and examination and your personal interaction with the children. And you developed a beautiful paper. Congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now I invite the participants to give her some suggestions, or if you want to have any query or question in your mind.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Congratulations, Shaili ma'am. You presented well. Let me introduce myself. I'm Sahaya Mary, research scholar from Tamil Nadu. Ma'am, could you explain your dependent variable musical perception ability? Could you explain what is musical perception ability?
In the music area research, music is exposed to, music is also multidisciplinary research. Like music, the people who belong to music department, they psycholinguistics, they also do the research. Music therapists, they also do the research. And educationists also very recently, they have started the research. So here comes the questions. If you go through the research work, you will find three terms very used simultaneously. One is musical ability, another one is musicality, and third one is musical sensitivity. So both are almost similar, but if I consider music perception, it comes under musical ability, and that too perceptual ability. That means how a person is perceiving a music after listening, or how you are approaching to that particular piece of music.
Yeah, ma'am, thank you. Shall I ask one more question with the permission of chairperson? Actually, ma'am, you framed two objectives for your study. The second objective is gender differences. Ma'am. While you started the presentation, I just thought that what is the relationship between a gender difference and intelligence and music perception? But your findings also suggest that there is no relation between these and all that. What is the rationale behind this? Why you frame your objective in gender differences? What is the rationale behind this, ma'am?
Actually, if you go through the 90s studies, means near about 1995 to 2002, in between that time, if you go through, there were many research who they were focusing on gender, but their boys were quite much more prevalent than the girls. Means they showed that there was gender difference and boys were much more efficient than the girls. So I thought of taking care of it. Okay, let's do it in my own study. Let me check it whether is there any role play of gender or all are quite equal. So that was the reason I chose up these things. Okay, let's play with gender.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am, for your clear explanation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So I think now, before I close the technical session, in which 3 papers were presented, they all were very interesting and threw light on the new dimensions of teaching and education, including emotional intelligence. Once again, I am grateful to the organizers for inviting me to chair this session. Thank you so much. Now over to Ravinder.
Thank you so much, Anita Bilavaria, ma'am.